It's the fallout from Heatwave, and we're on the road to No Mercy. What exactly went down, and how would it be infinitely better than Rampage this week? Let's find out. Roll intro. Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to HCW Show Squared. I am Dan, DP, or as everyone says, DPZ. Yeah. Yeah. In this edition, I am here in my very poorly timed shirt. Recent news has broke about CM Punk's termination. He's not dead. He's been released. Looking from AEW. But yeah, not sure how to react to it, but I'm sure the guys will have their opinions on the podcast. I'm not here to give my opinion on that. Anyway, let's get into what happened on NXT and AEW Rampage. So, we go straight into NXT for the 29th of August. We kick things off with the cage match between the Dyad, Rip Fowler and Jared Reed, against the returning Creed brothers, Julius and Brutus Creed. Before the match even start though, Brutus, I get confused, okay? I get confused between the pair of them. One of them is left by themselves. I think it's Julius. I think Julius is the one who's left by him. Yeah, Julius is left by himself, and Brutus is taken out by masked Schism members. So the bell rings. 2v1. Instantly, red flags are being raised in my head because I'm thinking, how do you start a tag team match with just 3 people in it? Anyway, the Creed win with simultaneous sliding lariats on the Dyad. I rated this 4 stars. Honestly, it was a really good match. In fact, it was a great cage match. It probably displayed the Creed's ability and the incredible talents they have as well. Julius handling both Fowler and Reed the best of his ability, including the thing that everyone's seen on social media, where he has Rip Fowler in the ankle lock and then he hits Jared Reed with a one-arm powerbomb. Incredible to look at. Also showcased the Dyer's ability to dismantle people. Maybe the most important thing for me though was the presentation of the match. Brutus came back into the match later on, looking like a monster. Does a goofy little chase sequence with Joe Gacy and Ava Rain. But he takes out all of his members who are ringside, and then eventually, because he can't get the key to the cage, he just rips the door off. He just rips the door off in one attempt. Like, no Kane and 97. He's like pulling and tugging at the door. Brutus gets the cage door, yanks once, doors off completely. Looked absolutely incredible. And the die had sold it. They'd seen a monster. They'd seen Jason in Friday the 13th. They'd seen amazing. Everything was amazing about that. But yeah, the match itself, incredible. I recommend go watching it when you get a chance. Moving on, we have a vignette. Roxanne Perez she comments on her opponents later on in the night, but mostly that she is ready to be the number 1 contender for the women's title. We then get a video package. I normally don't mention these, but it almost felt like it was needed. It was basically a video package that explained and outlined the rules for the Global Heritage Invitational tournament. It outlined the rules, which were wins of 2 points, draws of 1 point, and losses of 0 points. So like the G1 Climax round robin thing. There are 2 blocks of 4, and everyone will fight each person in their block once, and the people with the most points in their block will face each other, with the winner facing Noam Dar for the Heritage Cup trophy at No Mercy. But yeah, the way it was presented, it was done very professionally, and it was just a fun watch and informational. We go backstage. The family, Tony D'Angelo and Channing Lorenzo, are admiring the titles when they're joined by Carmelo Hayes, who also admires his title. Compliments are thrown around until the Street Profits come into the scene. They speak to the tag champs and to Carmelo, and then they tease that they're going to go after the NXT tag titles in the future. Cool. This is then broken up by a brawl happening between Electra Lopez, Lola Vice, and Dana Brooke and Kalani Jordan. Okay. Moving on. We then have a Global Heritage Invitational Group A match between Charlie Dempsey and Butch. Butch wins with a bitter end. 3 stars. If we separated matches by category, this would absolutely win the technical match of the night. It's good to see Butch back in his role and more like Pete Dunne. And I hope he's around more in NXT after this. Even if he reverts back to his old name, maybe, or like Pete Dunne or Tell. If you want to do a one name thing, just Dunne. Dempsey himself has plenty of potential, but it's clear he's not on the same level yet. But with Gulak, he'll be able to up his game and his training. He's got a high ceiling, but the right call was made here. Butch definitely needed to win more. So the standings as they stand, Butch is on 3 points, and he's the only guy on 3 points. Tyler Bate is on 0, so's Axiom, because they've not fought yet. And Charlie Dempsey is on 0 as well, because he's lost a match. So right now he's bottom of the table. We go backstage. We have an interview with Dragon Lee. Dragon Lee is about to say that he deserves a North American title shot when he's cut off by Mustafa Ali. Ali says he deserves a shot at the North American title first, because Dragon Lee's already had a shot and he failed. So now it's Mustafa's turn. I agree. We go in ring with Ilya Dragunov. Dragunov praises Trick Williams, but he now wants to focus on the NXT title and Carmelo Hayes. Then cue the greatest speaker in NXT. Noam Dar. Noam Dar is there. He interferes and he's there with Metaphor. And they're here basically just to relax Thunder Rousey. Ilya makes a comment about how it's very in character for Noam to make everything about him. And how, they want the attention himself. And then he threatens to join them in their boxer area to, make their lives hell. And this causes panic, so they relent. And Noam gives in, offering a match next week. But before he can offer himself for the match, Mensa cuts in and says, no, he'll face me. And then he faces himself. So he puts himself in the match instead for next week against Ilya, so Trick. So Oro Mensa against Ilya Dragunov next week on NXT. Ilya doesn't mind, and he kicks Mensa in the head before attempting to torpedo Moscow, which doesn't work, and then Mensa retreats. Backstage, Von Wagner wants to fight Braun Breaker again, but this time no DQ. He says come Tuesday again, and now he'll be bringing the hardwood. Great. So more memes, more sexual content, more sexual media, whatever. Great. We go back to the ring for a match. Electra Lopez and Lola Vice take on Kalani Jordan and Dana Brooke. This is that brawl that I mentioned earlier. Electra and Lola win after a spinning kick to the head of Jordan. I rated this 1 3/4 stars. A match that had very little substance, and honestly it's because of Dana Brooke. Dana is in the wrong role for the story and feud. Kalani has very little experience. Lola's new as well, but she has something to her. I don't know what it is, but she has something. Meanwhile, Lopez just feels sort of lost in the shuffle. I get that people need something to do and to fight people and stuff, but at this rate of flogging a dead horse, Dana needs to get away from all this. Let the other 3 do their own thing. Get Dana out. We get a vignette. Gigi Dolan is backstage and she's raising a number 1 contender. Very similar to Roxanne Perez's one earlier. Backstage, Trick is here with Carmelo Hayes. Carmelo isn't too happy that people still think that Carmelo beat Ilya because of Trick Williams. He wants to fight Ilya again, but 1-on-1. Trick doesn't seem too sure that Carmelo can win 1-on-1. He asks Trick again, but with no answer. Do you think I can win 1-on-1? Trick doesn't answer. But as Carmelo's leaving, Trick says, I know you can. But, presumably Carmelo didn't hear it. It'll be interesting to see the match itself, probably at the Mercy between Ilya and Carmelo. Just to see if it's a case of Carmelo doubting himself and that maybe costing him a title or something. Ilya is a beast in himself, so it'll be a very fun match for sure. Speaking of fun matches, we go to the ring. Dijak takes on Eddie Thorpe. Dijak wins with the Cyclone Kick. following a loaded punch of a belt buckle. I rated it 2.25 stars. It was alright. Still not sure what. I'm still not sure that I fully understand what Eddie Thorpe's doing. As far as I see it, he's just fodder for the bigger guys. Ultimately, these two seem to be stuck in limbo. I feel like you could have at least put Dijak in for the North American title conversation, or even in the Global Heritage thing. He seems to be an afterthought, I guess, the NXT. We have a vignette. Kiana James is here, and she has a similar vignette to what we saw from Roxanne and Gigi. And like those two, she's also ready to be number one contender for the title. Backstage, Braun interrupts a Baron Corbin interview to basically warn him not to get involved in the match with Von Wagner next week. Sweet. I find it hard to care about this in general. I hope they find a way to make it more interesting. We'll see though. We get a vignette. Humberto and Gaza. I think that's the name they're going by. Both wake up from the same dream, and they realise that things didn't work out because they let go of what they believed in, and that things were torn from them, that opportunities and titles and whatever. But now they realise they need to reunite and start from scratch, and then they reveal a Los Defarios t-shirt and seem to now officially be on the same page, and that they'll apparently be on NXT next week. Sweet. Blair Davenport is the fourth and final person to have one of these vignettes, and yeah, you guessed it, she's ready to be number one contender for the women's title. Sweet. We go over to social media for an Instagram reel. Rhea's here with Dominic Mysterio, and they're not happy at the idea of both Mustafa Ali and Dragon Lee getting title shots, or at least putting their claim forward for the title. Dominic encourages this though, encourages them both to keep fighting, and in fact he'll even be the guest referee for their match next week. Cool. We get a Global Heritage Invitational Group B match. Joe Coffey against Nathan Frazier. Joe Coffey wins with the best for all the best for the bells, which is a discus lariat. For me, this was rather surprising. I rated it 3 stars. It was quite a surprising result for me, because now Nathan has to have an underdog run and rely on Coffey losing or tying both his matches with Hudson and Tozawa. And unless the plan is for Coffey to win B Block, I don't really see Coffey screwing it up against Hudson or Tozawa. As for Fraser, I don't see him losing to Hudson or Tozawa either. But yeah, I don't know really. Speaking of, actually, Tozawa and Hudson's match is going to be on NXT Level Up, so I will slot that in when I get to the end of NXT. But the Group B standings, Joe Coffey's at the top with 3 points. Akira Tozawa and Duke Hudson are at nothing because they're not at their match yet. And Nathan Fraser's also at nothing because he lost his match. We get a vignette. Chase Yu are in the classroom. Andre Chase asks where Thea Hale is. Duke assumes that she's just late. Andre runs through the rules of the Global Heritage Invitational, which confused Duke a little. After class, he and Duke speak about it. They're then cut off by Thea. Questions are asked, but really only more questions arise from this. And then suddenly Jade appears at the corner of the door, asking if Thea's ready to go out. Thea seems to be making new friends, but not necessarily the right ones. Backstage, we show an anonymous post, which shows Fallon Henley talking to Mars Bourne, offering him a spot in to be the third man for Brooks and Jensen in a trios match against Gulak, Kemp, Dempsey, and Kemp. Mars is excited for the opportunity to compete on NXT, so he agrees. We get another Instagram reel thing. Wes Lee's in the desert to clear his mind. He wants to face Carmelo Hayes again. He mentions the barricade he went headfirst into and how that wasn't part of his plan. I was hoping they'd mention it, like the fluky nature of Carmelo's defense there, but fair enough. We're backstage again. Tyler Bate interview. Tyler breaks down his block. He's quick to comment on Dempsey and Axiom, but he does spend a bit more time talking about Butch. He mentions their history briefly, but chooses to set his focus on Dabba-Kato, and says that he'll be the David to Dabba-Kato's Goliath. And then we go into the main event of NXT, which was the NXT Women's Championship #1 contender spot. So we have Roxanne Perez, Gigi Dolan, Kiana James, and Blair Davenport. Kiana James wins after hitting a deal breaker on Gigi, following a 401k to Roxanne. I rated this 3.5 stars. I enjoyed this a lot. I have not been too impressed by Kiana over the last few months, and even though her interactions in this match were limited, it was done in a way that didn't really display her flaws too much. Of course, her match with Tiffany may well be a different story. Of course, the end of the match impressed me as well because it reminded me of an old school wrestling game where you'd have finishers stored to hit on all the opponents in the ring, so no one can pick up the pin. It was fun. A very fun match. Post-match, though, Tiffany comes out for a stare down. But that's not the end of the show. The end of the show comes backstage. We're showing Carmelo Hayes backstage entering Shawn Michaels' office. He says that they need to speak about something. And that is what officially ends NXT. So overall, decent enough show. Set up some stuff for the future, and also, got things going with the Global Heritage Invitational. Speaking of, let's get into NXT Level Up, which was the same day, I believe. I think they filmed it on the same day, but they released the Level Up a few days later. So yeah, we have a Global Heritage Invitational Group B match. Duke Hudson against Akira Tozawa. Duke wins with the release of Razor's Edge. I'm a little surprised at the win there, to be honest. I rated it 3 stars, but I'm a little surprised again, as I said, at who won here. But saying that, I am glad for Duke. It was a solid match, as you'd probably expect from Akira when he's not being held back on the main roster. But I still don't see people being won by anyone other than Kofi or Fraser. So this just served as a match for the other two to have, that match out of the way. Though, as I said earlier, Kofi not winning the block seems very unlikely, and I don't see him losing or tying with either Tozawa or Hudson. But we'll see. So as they stand, the standings for Group B, Joe Coffey and Duke Hudson are at the top with 1 win, 3 points. Meanwhile, Akira Tozawa and Nathan Frazier are at the bottom with 0 points and 1 loss. And that brings an end to NXT Level Up. Then we go into the AEW portion of the show, which was AEW Rampage for the 1st of September 2023. We kick things off with a tag team battle royal to determine who will face MJF and Adam Cole all out for the ROH World Tag Titles. The Dark Order win, surprisingly enough, after John Silver eliminating Trent Barretta last. I rated this 2.25 stars. There's really not much here you can do with Battle Royal. Singles, never mind tag teams. And with the amount of Battle Royals that AEW do also, it's hard to differentiate between one from another. It's all the same formula with just different winners. I do have a theory that I'm going to share with why Dark Order won. I think Dark Order are winning the tag titles at All Out. I honestly do think that. You needed a team that wouldn't have minded winning via tainted means, because it's almost a guarantee that Roderick Strong, Matt Taven, and Matt Bennett are going to be getting involved in that match as well, and with that probably costing the titles. So Dark Order for me made sense, rather than like Aussie Open, Best Friends, or even the Hardys. Post match though, Aussie Open pick a fight with Chris Jericho. And before things can escalate, Sonny Guevara comes out and makes a save. We get a vignette. Mike Santana takes us on a journey. At least the beginnings of it anyway. He talks about his debut in AEW and where he's also suffered an injury that put him on a shelf a couple of weeks ago. He tells us to join him on his journey, and he's got a story to tell. Moving on to another match, we have Nick Wayne and El Hijo del Pequeno taking on Kip Sabian and Gringo Loco. Hijo del Pequeno and Nick Wayne win after a 630 senton from Hijo on to Gringo. I rate this 3 stars. Honestly, I did dig this match. The Franken team of Vikingo and Wayne seems to work, and their styles seem to blend together as well, which is always a good thing. But I expect that if we maybe see his team regularly again on a monthly basis, it could be something that AEW do dig into. And if they continue with these two, you've got a much better version of Top Flight or whatever Action Andretti's thing is. But yeah. So we have a vignette again. QTV are backstage, wondering where QT is. Johnny TV appears and he just shows them footage from QT Marshall's recent Latin American TV title defense at Progress Wrestling against Chuck Mambo. Johnny then throws a coffee over Harley, declaring that he's now in charge. Sorry, and then Excalibur mentions potentially this is a hostile takeover of QTV. Cool. Back to the ring. Hangman Page takes on Brian Keith in a battle for who is a true cowboy and who's doing the real cowboy shit. Hangman Page wins with the buckshot lariat. I rated 2 stars. It wasn't necessarily a squash match, but it kind of was because you knew who was winning, and overall I think it was like 85-15, like percentage wise for offense. Yeah, I know it makes no sense what I said, but like it gives Hangman his licks and he also dishes them out as well. But I'm familiar with Brian Keith from the indie scene, so I know that he can do a lot more than what we're seeing here. But if he's given a chance, it'd be great to have more of him on AEW, whether it's on Rampage, Collision, or even Dynamite. But yeah, Hangman wins and continues to be the big name that he is. Backstage, with an interview with Angelo Parker, Matt Menard, and Daniel Garcia. Angelo is the main speaker here. He blames Chris Jericho for their lack of opportunities as they held themselves back for Jericho. Garcia wonders if they should have been better, if they would have been better, sorry, without the leather trousers, if they remained in pants or trunks. And before he says that he regrets being a sport entertainer, Menard cuts him off and says that they'll win the trios titles on Collision, or the Promised Land, as it's called now. Backstage still, we have a sit-down interview with Roderick Strong. Roderick refuses to answer any questions and engage with the interview whatsoever. He says that he'll tell his story on his own time, under his own terms. He then walks out with Taven and Bennett. I gotta say, like, mopey, annoyed Roderick is a Roderick Strong that I never knew I needed, but it's also one I like and one I want, and also one I can get behind. His almost nasal voice adds to it as well, and I'm all for it. But now we move on. It's time for the main event. We have Anna Jay and Ty Valkyrie taking on the team of Sky Blue and Willow Nightingale. Sky Blue and Willow Nightingale win after Sky Blue hits a code blue on Anna Jay. I rated 2 3/4 stars. Honestly, who would have guessed that the Franken team would have lost here? But yeah, match was alright. But I guess that's about it. Sky Blue got a nice little hometown welcome and applause when they won because she's from there. But that's really all you could ask for this first match. It sort of felt like nothing, and at the same time was alright. But yeah, other than that, that was the end of Rampage, and that was the main event. And that is, I believe, the last, well, other than Collision, this is the last Rampage before AEW All Out. So I won't see you until next week, until next Sunday, after everything's passed. So with that in mind, I have been Dan, DP, D to the Queen Z. This has been HCW Show Squared. All our socials are above there, mine are below there. And you've been watching HW. Stay tuned. Peace.